Good morning and welcome to this grab and go session today, where we are going to have an honest talk about pitfalls and change journeys in transformation work. True transformations are something that redefines you as an organization, and it's not easy. We have some learnings and some mistakes that we would like to share with you here today. And I'm very excited, we all are very excited to see so many on the call this morning. Great to have you here. Just on a little practical note, during the session, please feel free to ask questions. We have some time reserved towards the end to address those, and you can use the questioning function on your screen. Thank you. But before we dive into it, just a very short introduction of us, your speakers here today. I can start. My name is Camilla Allen. I'm head of our organizational transformation department here in Deloitte Consulting. I bring more than 15 years of experience driving big transformation for global organizations, primarily from your side of the table, and for the last 3 years as a consultant. I promise to share with you today some of the hardship that I've faced during these years and also the bruises that I've gotten working with transformation.
And my name is Stine Deinegård. I am Director in Transformation Leadership here in Deloitte. I have a background as a researcher and I hold a PhD in designing large-scale transformations, primarily within the energy sector. So I too have had my struggles with large transformations. And what I bring to transformation work is methods. So some of the methods that will prevent the bruises and the bumps that Camilla just mentioned. And here on the right-hand side on the screen, you can also see that, so Camilla and I, we put our experiences together and we have developed the Deloitte Digital Thought Leadership. So that's a little side note, but something that we use in this work as well. So how to work virtually and also how to drive transformations virtually. And then we have Mr. Frankenstein.
Yeah, my name is Christian Weng. I'm part of the Deloitte's Nordic SAP unit, and today you can see on the right side I'm Mr. Horror or Mr. SAP. I have multiple hats today, but what I would explain you about is actually over the last 15 years some of the SAP ERP transformation I've been part of and that didn't go that well. So I'll promise you to bring some of the horror stories if you're not doing this properly. So I'm very much looking forward to this week. But before we go into the details here, let's start this session, kick off the session with a little video.
And yes, let's look at this.
Hey guys, just thought you might want to know, sales aren't up, they're down. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we can see that partying and denial could be the reasons why these monkeys won't reap success. But why is it that transformations fail? Actually, we would love to hear from you. So have you ever experienced failure or lack of success or not really reaping the full benefit of a transformation? And if so, what were the reasons? And if we could ask you to find your phone and go to a browser and press in menti.com. And in the top bar here, you can see the code for that, 7000812. So press in the code and you will be able to give your view on what were the reasons that some of the projects or transformations failed.
Please go ahead and vote.
And while you're logging in, we can see the first on the screen here. So were it due to technical issues? Was it due to delays, lack of training, or poor training? Cultural issues, lack of commitment, lack of alignment, or lack of stamina? What were the reasons? Yeah.
Oh,
now we
now
can
they're
see
coming
this.
down.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Why not more on technical issues? I really don't like this picture here.
It looks like a commitment,
I'm not
Yeah.
needed any longer.
culture,
See you.
training. Oh, culture is taking the lead here.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks for the technical issues coming up here.
Yeah. So commitment is taking the lead.
Yeah.
Cultural issues.
Quite interesting
Yeah.
to see that many.
Lack of alignment. Yeah.
So, culture and commitment
Yeah.
seems to be the
Yeah.
an alignment.
And as we're getting in the results, I think this picture also very much demonstrates some of the points that we're going to make today. That these are the hard. This is the hard stuff.
This is the invisible stuff.
Yeah, and not the technical issues, delays, execution that we normally
As
put a
you may
lot of
think.
focus on.
All right.
So as the results are coming in, and this is also, we're gonna make a screen dump of this and send it to you. So if we can go back to the small video for a second, then of course we do not compare ourselves or our employees or leaders with monkeys. But what we wanted to do with this small provocation is to take it to the extreme and explain why these transformations fail. And you're exactly right. It's due to behavior. So behavior can be the enabler, or they can become the barrier. Now we have perfect. Can be the barrier why you don't reap the full potential. So human behavior will, in other words, make it or break it. And what we're here today to share are some of the examples and insights of how to set up the best possible human behavior to set the transformations up for success. So, for transformations not to fail, what is it that you need to get right? Well, apart from communication, that we will not talk about today, but communication is one of the most commonly used change activities in transformations, and often also the only change activity. But apart from that, we have chosen two focus areas for you today. So aligned leadership and full commitment, and then the smooth, inspiring, fun, and engaging training. These are the two focus areas. And Camilla, would you like to take us through the first one?
Absolutely. So the first one, what do you need to get right? Well, in my experience, there are three things that you need to focus on in order to get this right. First of all, you need to make sure that you align the leaders around a common vision, that you establish a change journey where leaders are equipped to actually drive the transformation and the change in the organization. And finally, you need to make sure that you anchor the ownership of the benefit realization from the very beginning. So now you may think that this is all self-explanatory, almost like a cliche. So why am I standing here today talking about it to all of you? Well, that's because in our experience, this is something that we again and again and again do not actually set the time for or put the effort aside to do it. And it's almost as we believe in the magic tooth fairy that she will come along and fix it for us. Well, if you don't do it, you won't get it. So just because the executive group has decided that this is a good idea to do this transformation, it doesn't mean that the leaders necessarily just buy into it automatically. And there is no just one good tool or one good process that will lead to this. But let me share with you just a few good ideas. So first of all, how do you get the leaders aligned around the vision? Well, a good approach to this is by inviting the most important senior stakeholders to sessions where they can actually help to shape the vision. So in other words, don't have it all prefixed. Make sure that there is room for flexibility in shaping the story in order for them to take ownership. So the examples that you see here on the screen are all from visioning workshops where we have co-created with the leaders on the overarching vision. So together with the leaders, and one of the outcomes was this behavior and trust toolkit that you see in the corner there, and it truly created a common language for these leaders, and also it prevented that the vision took off into 1,000 different interpretations. So that was just to share a few examples on how you can do it. And also during these visioning sessions, you also establish the initial conditions for creating the change journey. And you also start the very important work of equipping the leaders to actually drive the change in the organization. That they know that the key messages, and they know how to express them in their own personal leadership style. And on the note of being personal, one of the things and one of the elements that we have had great success with is what we call fireside chats.
Yeah, and it actually looks quite cozy, we can see there. So yeah, fireside chats. A good time for it right now. It's getting dark, but can you say a little bit more about what it will bring?
Well, it's leaders hosting intimate sessions with employees, and these intimate sessions will create an opportunity for the employees to ask questions and also to share what is difficult for them. So in an honest way and in a smaller setting, and the upside is that you stay close to what is actually happening. You build the trust and you create also the transparency. And you ensure almost like a natural risk mitigation where you can get ahead of emerging issues before they become real incidents. And finally, you also get the insight that means that you need to have the courage to actually change the change journey if needed.
So actually, we have to lay out the change journey from the beginning, but change it or iterate it during the path?
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. So that's very important that you don't just stay fixed towards the plan, but that you listen to the feedback that you get and make sure that you iterate and change your course as needed. It's a very important point. Finally, now we talked about creating the shared vision and creating the change journey, but finally committing to actually taking ownership of realizing the business benefit is very important. And a small trick here is to have leaders sign a document, a piece of paper that they stand by, the decisions, because that's going to have a tremendous effort during the remaining journey.
Actually, I tried once to have leaders painting their thumb with different color markers and putting it up there, their fingerprint. And we can laugh about that, but that symbolism, that small thing actually carries the effort and makes huge effect.
It truly will have an impact on the commitment during the transformation. It also means that, the commitment will lead to making sure that you get the resources from them that you ask for, testers, super users, change agents, and so on. So the effect that it will have throughout the journey is truly tremendous.
Yeah. And we know we've spent quite a lot of time on this first chunk, but it's because it's important. Also, as you put in the Menti, this is important stuff to get right. And if you don't get it right, do we have any horror stories coming up Halloween? So Mr. Frankenstein, do you have any horror stories to share with us on this topic?
I'll put on my virtual horror hat now. And for sure, I know what you're talking about. We've seen so many times where this didn't fit in, and it actually caused a lot of chaos around in the different clients and projects that we were running. One particular example I want to mention here is a big Danish corporation, 7 big business units, VPs for all of them, headquarter-driven project. Business case was actually in place because they had to replace an old system, very expensive, into a new one. Everything makes sense. They did the right calculations, and then they started the headquarter project on that. What they did forget was the 7 business units. They had 7 kingdoms. They had 7 very successful top managers sitting there, and basically they played the game, but they really didn't buy into it. They weren't onboarded. So on the steering committee meetings, they just tried to pull out all the obstacles, all the blockers in this one, and they didn't really buy in and they really support the project as such. What goes for the participants in the projects, because they came from the same organizations, it was fully the same, because the KPI of most employees is make your boss happy, and if your boss doesn't buy into this, it didn't go anywhere. So they assigned people on a half-time basis without really commitment, or even worse, they hired in new people, not knowing the business at all, put them into the projects, we did our duty, and it went down the drain, you could say. I wouldn't say they didn't have a shared vision, they actually had a shared vision saying, make this go away. And that was the crazy thing about this project. And this is actually a true story. Sounds ridiculous, but it managed to go live, this project. They had an implementation partner, this case not us, but they actually had a very solid project management, and so they managed, after a lot of delays and costly prolongations of the project, they managed to go live with a big disaster. People didn't know how to use the system, financial forecasting statements, they were wrong, they lost the overview, they couldn't send out invoices, incoming invoices, they just had to pay, they couldn't reconcile those at all, but in order not to get into furthermore trouble. So that was a bloody mess, you could say.
Yeah.
So the result was actually, and that's where we actually came into picture, they had to restart the project. They had to redo a lot of the stuff in this project. Not only the change management piece, but also redoing some of the stuff in the system that was set up wrongly. So basically a restart of the project, not a full project, but to a large extent a project. And so that was a costly and the business case-wise pretty messy thing as well. And on top of that, the whole reason for doing this, they couldn't cancel the old system before they had a new one really working. So they had double cost for many years on this one. So I think that client learned a lot about that experience. And I guess you have faced similar things, maybe not to that extent, but in the same way of what just happened here.
So what you're saying is that they wasted quite a lot of effort and money here. And they could have gotten this right from the beginning with the right change management effort.
Yeah, if they started with some of the tricks you just mentioned here, it would have been much better.
Thank you for re-emphasizing that point and also sharing a true war story with us. Thank you very much. So before we go into to the next area around training and learning, to sum up this, we would like to just show a live example of a very unaligned leadership team.
Different countries. And here we are at the start of the first event of the afternoon, the second semi-final of the 100 yards for people with no sense of direction. I'll just give you the competitors. Lane 1, Skolomoski of Poland. Lane 2, Zarapatik of France. Lane 3, Grobovich of the United States. Next to him, Drabble of Trinidad. Next to him, Fernandez of Spain. And in the outside lane, Borman of Brazil. Well,
Only Monty Python can say that, so great little video to highlight that. So this was a couple of insights and horror stories on leadership alignment and why that was important or is important. So now let's dive into smooth, inspiring, fun, engaging training. A lot of words there. So what you need to get right in terms of training. So training beyond the new functionalities is important. Inspiring, innovative learning experience, and that it is human-centered. These are the three elements that we want to dive into. So let us go to the first one. So of course it's apparent that you need to train the new functionalities, building skills for the new system. But training should be so much more than a question of pushing the blue button instead of the yellow button going forward. So the employees will have new tasks, new responsibilities, new possibilities, maybe a new job altogether when this works. So instead of only training them for system, they need to be trained in how to serve the business going forward. And when the machines take over, and that sound kind of horror-ish, but when we have less manual tasks, we have employees who will serve the clients differently and who will serve the business differently. And here in Deloitte, we work with an academy system or approach where employees are both trained in the the functionalities from the blue button to the red or yellow. And we are also trained in more strategic business partnering skills, such as what are the new behaviors that are required, what are the communication that I need to be able to do. Yeah, and as you can see also here in the pictures, these things can be delivered virtually. So actually there are no excuse for getting this started right from the beginning. Yeah, and then innovative learning, how to get it right. So training is something that we can agree on is something we need, but how to make it inspiring, innovative, that is the trick here. We use something called a blended learning approach, where we have online training, physical training when we can do that again, workshops. We have homework and group work, flipped classroom where we have the participants educating the teachers. So really being creative about the training sessions and how that can be inspiring. And actually what you can see in the corner of the bike there, I think it's made out of piberenser, is that bike is from one of the training sessions.
So piberenser, that sounds a bit analog, I think.
Yeah, but what you cannot see here is this is from a setting from the Danish EPA, the Miljøstyrelsen, and their digital transformation program. And that bike actually has a sensor to it, and it can collect the pollution in the city. So yeah.
Oh.
Wow, kudos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, the third part then will be the human-centered part.
Yes, that's the last point we want to make in terms of training, is to make sure to keep it relevant for the employees. So take a human-centered perspective, not a system perspective. And what does that mean? Well, that means you need to take a look at the new situation from the chair and the eyes of the employee. So what are the tasks they need to perform in the new setup? What we typically do in Deloitte is that we make a set of personas of the employees, so we can tailor the learning journey to match every one of these, so the controller to the finance business partner, the client support functions, and so on, right? And the value that we gain from this approach of putting ourselves in their shoes and not just delivering a generic one-size-fits-all training is a quicker adoption. So where the skills are built because they can recognize themselves in this journey. So human-centered, guys.
Like the person in the hammock there.
Exactly. So, Christian, on these topics, any real-life horror stories, war stories to share with us?
Yeah, I have many, but let me put my horror hat on again. This is an example from a big HR implementation system. And this is one of ERP systems today, more and more turn into cloud-based software as a service solutions. And this was the case here. Replacing the old system with a new one with a lot of new features, easy to use. Just go ahead, buy it, get it on the cloud and log on, and the show goes on. What actually happened here is people didn't face the issues by doing that, because they just got a standard system here. And into the business case, they said they built in that training were not needed, because this is the easy user interface. A lot of people around the world is using the same system with a great success. So building into that story, it just went live with all the technical issues on that one, and that ended up in a mess, like the previous example. There was also a perception of this is an HR system. How bad can it go? A little bumpy road here for a new HR system. How bad could it go? But if you count in HR systems today, it's about performance management, it's people development.
Okay.
And it's a master data that feeds into your payroll systems. And if there's one thing I've learned throughout my career, don't mess with people's paycheck. That's simply the worst thing you can do here. So all of a sudden, this was sent out. It was put live, one big bang, because you need to have your master data in one system in one go. You cannot share them across a lot, and actually have that effect that it messed up with promotions, with the salary raises, with the salary itself on that note. So that's maybe a general note here. With software as a service, with cloud-based solutions, you just adopt to standard, and then if you believe you don't need training, that's totally wrong. That actually requires more training than usual, because for sure you need to adapt to those processes and not the ones you're used to and the ones you're running day out and day in. So again, this ended up in a new project. We actually called it a cleanup project, because we had to redo, and that was mostly the training we had to redo here, because the system was well functioning, but how to adopt the processes. It was a little bit about the data also to be cleansed. But after that, and after a big redo, and actually it was not system-centric, it was the personas. There were different people here that need different training. After doing that, and a mix of classroom training, virtual training like that, it ended up being running again, and today it's a success story. But it took a while, and it was again a little costly, or much more costly than anticipated in the business case. So this is maybe one of the keys here. Yeah. Do it right from the beginning, because there's actually money in this. So I have to admit, I like the technical challenges here, but yeah.
Yeah. Wow, what a horror story. But okay, so if we get this right, if we get these things right that we have been talking about today, Christian, in your point of view, are we then in safe haven or what?
Yeah, if we do it right from the beginning.
And what is right then?
And right is working together. Like we stand here together, it's working together, start together, end together, but also use a structured method. Use a structured way of doing it, where it's not something that we, 2 weeks before go live, call Stina and Camilla, could you please set up a little communication pack for me here and a little training? No, let's do it from the beginning. Let's make sure that it's anchored in the methodology and what we're doing here. So when we do workshops together, we do deliverables together, and we get those input, and that's how we do. Simply illustrated here, probably hard to read, but this actually shows that we have an IT implementation track, we have a data track, we have the usual suspects in those programs that's normally anchored in those kind of methods, but we also have a change management track or a people track. And that's the key here, that we work in parallel, then we meet, joint deliverables, but we think everything through together from the beginning, walking hand in hand on this journey. And this is based on experience. So it's actually based on horror stories, you could say. I'm actually having my happy hat on now, if you have seen that. So this is actually the way to do it. This is a proud moment when you actually start a project like this, and when you are allowed to run it like that. And we've seen this what works here in order to avoid those horror stories, to be very honest. And based on experience, based on running very big projects across geographies, across time zones. So this is actually Corona-proof, or fit for virtual, or am I being carried a little bit away by my happy hat here?
No, you're not.
Not at all. I think we can all agree that the virtual is here to stay, at least for now. So there is no excuse. It does require an extra effort and a good portion of creativity to make something virtually engaging. Yeah.
The pictures that you see here on the screen are from some of our trainings that have been done virtually. And as you can see, it's not boring, and it does require all of our creative capacity to make it work. But it can work actually. So we have now given you a couple of focus areas that we think are the most important things to get right from the beginning, and to integrate that in transformation design. So thank you very much for participating so far. We would love to hear if you have any questions, and I guess we'll get them in. And move on to the question part for the last minutes here.
So a question came in here. Can you talk a little bit about the communication aspect as well? What is important to remember? And maybe if I kick it off around, so communication needs to be well planned, and it needs to be well executed. So what does that mean? Well, that means you need to make sure that you define the right moments to share the right type of information on the right channels as well. And each and every organization has various channels that works, and it's super important that you tap in to those channels and that you make it inspiring and innovative, so that people remember it.
And as the same, like the fireside chats. These are also some of the things that you can co-create with the employees and with the leaders, and also testing it. So sometimes you need to test the testing. How does that work? How do we deliver the messages in the best possible way? So being very, very close to the organization with a big ear, listening for, does this work? Does this resonate? Because relevance, striking the relevance, what also Camilla talks about, moments that matters. If we cannot strike the relevance, if people don't feel it's relevant for them, they simply won't take it in. So really discovering when the sweet spot is, and then being creative with the communication. I think that is one of our like the biggest advice that we can give.
And maybe one of the horror stories from real life examples. I must admit it's some years back, but I remember a system implementation where all that was shared was a communication towards the end with, you know, the how-to guide, and it ended up on the last page saying, "Trust you like it, smiley." That was it. So don't do that.
Yeah. Can you see if there
Yes.
more question on the screen?
So, here's a good one. Are there people challenges that are new or different in a virtual reality?
Yes.
That's our favorite topic.
Yes, that's a good
these
topic.
days.
And the question is, yes. And I think also the question maybe derives from we feeling it ourselves. So right now we're sitting and looking at a screen, we're talking to you through this lens of the camera, which is weird because normally we would be standing in front of you. But yes, there are challenges. And I think also looking into the second wave of Corona, we might have had the creativity and the acceleration with the first wave, but now the real challenges come really building on new forms of creative ideas of how to be together and how to be close. So some of the things that are very important for us as leaders is to think our work differently. To think that how can I be close with my employees when I cannot see them on an everyday basis. And we have gathered a lot of inspiration from both employees and leaders, from many clients. And people are quite creative in how to do that, all the way down to sending small emojis to your boss during the day to say how you're feeling. So using technology is now the glue between us. So leveraging the technology, and for us to invest the time in saying, okay, we would actually like to learn this part of technology, use these platforms to enable us to work together.
We also... Go ahead.
But maybe also to add, we are doing some of the projects, and even in our more technical tracks, we're doing a lot for bigger projects, design workshops, and it's so difficult. And that's actually also where we call you in, not on your main duty on the project, but actually also to facilitate that, because the tricks how to approach people in different settings and on different levels of how comfortable they are in those kind of settings require something else. We just have to admit. Just doing Skypes or Teams doesn't work the same way on a design workshop. So actually there are some tricks about what to get out of it, how to approach it, put in icebreakers on the way and stuff like that. Really helps us technical guys and girls a lot in that setting. So there's a lot to do in the ways of working in bigger transformation projects itself here.
Yeah, and it's so one thing is that we know we have to do it in a different way, but the next thing is to then internalize it. So as you can see here in the picture, it does require something else, and we can share that we have had large corporations, finance departments and whatever, and we've been doing Teletubbies, head, shoulders, knees and toes to get the blood flowing. So we have had to go.
That was a fun day for sure.
But we have had to go out of our comfort zone, so it feels weird also for us, and we need to know that.
Yeah, it's a lot about the behaviors and really having the courage also, I think, to do something different. But I think that I guarantee that everybody remembers the Teletubbies.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. So how do you get leadership buy-in to begin with if you are a frustrated employee who completely agree with what you say in your presentation? I love that question. So hello, a frustrated employee agreeing with the presentation. So it's getting leadership buy-in. It's not an easy task, and we shouldn't underestimate obviously the effort here. But I think defining those key stakeholders and who are the most important, getting them all together in a room and start to co-create on the vision. I once had a big global transformation program on digitalization, and I got 8 of the most important stakeholders into the room, and they had 8 different stories. So, you know, it was all from their own perspective while we were doing this, and you know, they were believing that it was for their own good or their business unit or their, you know, own little kingdom part. So I think it's really around, you know, people, and it's around, you know, listening to them, understanding why, you know, what's difficult, why is there no buy-in, is it because they have other KPIs? So having those conversations and then trying to have some flexibility to build that common ground. Yeah. And daring also to talk about the elephant in the room and getting them assembled to tell them the importance of this buy-in.
Yeah. And also using a couple of tricks to get, because it sounds easy now, we get them into the room and we are working on it. And you can say, if the atmosphere already is sour, then how do you then work with that? And one trick is to have one-on-ones before collecting them. So understanding what's important for you and what's important for you and what's important for you before you collect them. And then you can have a shared idea of, okay, this we can agree on, and these are the elements that we can agree on. So that could be the first trick. Another trick is to mirror some of the things that you're talking about, like with external perspectives. So this company chose to address it like this, or research or trends are showing this. How do we then see ourselves up against that? So having that external perspective in on the challenge can also help untie some of these kind of Gordic knots that it can be getting people aligned in the beginning.
And maybe going back to the structured method of doing this, something that helps is actually, you know, today the stage gate criteria has built in that this needs to be aligned. Maybe you cannot force it in, but at least you know, the more structured people that just want to run a project, they know we can't go beyond that point until the next stage in this before we have settled this. Somehow you force them into the process, but they get into it and they understand the value of that, because earlier on this happened way far and close to the go lives, and where it's a little too late to do this.
But that also requires the courage to say, now we put this on pause because we need to get this right before we move on.
Yes. Red dot, we cannot go beyond this.
It requires the structure that you are referring to, and making sure that you get change management up on the same level as IT deliverables, because as we just concluded in the beginning, those are the main reason for why this fails. So obviously it should also be compared at the exact same level as an IT
maybe above. If we look at the Menti, it should go above
the standard
what
system.
I'm doing now.
Maybe even above.
Please call me when you have it.
We will. But I think the key word here is really the listening, because I think, you know, it's back to the human behaviors, and it can take a lot of the edge off for people just being listened to and being heard and understood. Yeah. So, best of luck to you, frustrated employee.
Have a last one, maybe?
Yes. Let's choose a last question here. What are the best examples that you have seen of helping people to deal with ambiguity and uncertainty during change?
Yeah, so maybe I can start. So I have been working with large transformations with multi-stakeholders. So more organizations coming together. So if you think it's hard in one organization, bringing multiple organizations into one initiative, now that's complexity. And why do they do that? They need to do that because we're looking at societal challenges, conversion to green energy for one, but we don't know what that looks like. We don't know how to get there. It's like stepping into the fog. We know we need to do something new, but we don't exactly know what the answer looks like. How do you get an organization to buy into that, to get leaders to walk on that path? Well, if you don't know what the solution will be, then you need a very good structure. So imagine the process. The process is like a rail that you can hold in this fog. So there are rails you can hold. There's a strong process with phases or steps where we need to clarify things during this process and really getting the fog out of the way. So having a strong process is one of the elements to deal with ambiguity. Another thing is to have the trust in this will go great. And how do we get that? Well, others have done this. So again, mirroring up against who has done this in a way where we can say they were kind of in the same situation. They took a leap of faith. They used the structured process. Okay, then we can do that. So again, this kind of external perspective can also help both leaders and also organizations navigate in fog and ambiguity.
And I think the last part that I want to highlight is also time. So you know, each and every one has a different change journey, and make sure that, you know, you build in the time and you allow the time for them to actually come to acceptance without pushing too much. Gentle push, nudging a little bit, of course, but I think time is also a very important factor here.
Yeah, time. And creativity also, as we can see again.
Yes.
Really daring to think about how can we solve this exact problem that we have in front of us, and not relying always on prefixed structures and models. Yeah. Should we say that this is what we wanted to present to you today? Please reach out to us if you need either perspectives on change, or either horror stories or technical.
The heavy stories.
Yeah,
the heavy stories.
Yes.
And the proud moments.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you very
Yeah.
much, everybody, for participating here this morning. It's been a pleasure talking to all of you. And as Stine said, feel free to reach out. We will share our contact details and also the presentation that we have shown you here today.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Good
thank
luck
you.
with the transformations.
Yes.